The Final Name, inspired by the murder of Julie Wolanski in Toronto in 1962. This episode is set in Toronto in 1952. Welcome back to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. I'm Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations, and you're listening to another Whodunit Wednesday in a Mick and Mack mystery, where we step into the world of classic detective fiction. Go back to the golden era of detective fiction and enjoy stories in the tradition of the greats of writing. From Agatha Christie to Raymond Chandler to John Creasy, these are short stories I hope you enjoy. Act 1. Echoes and Imposters. Chapter 1. A Girl Goes Missing. The call came in just after supper. Not a scream, not a panic. Just a quiet mother's voice in the other end of the line, brittle and tight, like something stretched too far. My daughter didn't come home. 16-year-old Julie Wozniak had left her family's modest flat near St. Clair in Oakwood just after 4 o'clock that afternoon. She was a bright girl, sharp as a tack, aiming for university. The sort who never missed a test, never flubbed an appointment. The sort who, her mother insisted, knew exactly where she was supposed to be. She said she had to go to an exam, Mrs. Wozniak told Mick, her hands twisting the hem of a dish towel. Some kind of make-up test, said a man from the Board of Education called. Said she was exempt, but he insisted she still had to show up or her year might be delayed. Mick scribbled notes slowly. Did she say where she was going? She said Eglinton Station. She was meeting the doctor there and they were going to another school. Her voice caught. She didn't want to go, but she said she had to go to clear it up. It was Mack who asked the next question. Did she know this doctor's name? Mrs. Wozniak hesitated. She said he gave it, but she didn't write it down, just that he sounded official. Gentle. Kind. Too kind, Mick muttered. Julie never arrived at any school, and she didn't come home. The hours ticked by. By nightfall, the phone had stopped ringing, and the city had swallowed her whole. Eve Whitmore was waiting for them the next morning at Division Street Station, a manila folder tucked beneath her arm, and her eyes sharp with something more than concern. I heard about the Wozniak girl, she said without preamble, and I think you need to see this. She laid out a sheet of paper, typed, clean, neatly folded. It listed incidents, more than 24, involving a man posing as a doctor affiliated with the Toronto Board of Education. The earliest was from March. The most recent? Last week. All girls, Eve said, ages 11 to 17. Calls placed to their homes, posing as a school official, in some cases, asking questions about hygiene, sleep habits, pajamas. One even claimed he needed to do physical examinations. Mick stiffened. Who compiled this? A friend of military intelligence. A file crossed his desk as part of an unrelated domestic monitoring brief. They flagged the pattern. He flagged me. Mack looked over the sheet. Some of these girls agreed to meet him? We think so. A few appointments were set. Most parents intervened, but not all. She slid them a second sheet. One name was circled. Julie Wozniak, she said softly. This one isn't just another attempt. This one's gone. The silence in the room turned dense. Mick looked up. We need to find out who this doctor really is. Eve nodded, and fast, because I don't think Julie Wozniak is his first. Chapter 2. The Doctor Who Wasn't. The corridors of the Board of Education building were quiet. Too quiet for a place supposedly crawling with records clerks and school officials. Mack stood in front of a locked office door marked Student Services, Records. Mack jiggled the handle without much hope. Looks like the doctor's out, he muttered. Let's find out if he was ever in, Mick said, pulling a list from his coat pocket. The address on the note Julie's mother had handed over was for a Dr. Leon Havel of the Academic Wellness Division, a title that didn't appear on any official roster. They spent the rest of the morning chasing phantoms. No such doctor, no such division, and no record of any scheduled health examinations at Julie's school or any other. Back at the precinct, Eve Whitmore leaned against the edge of Mick's desk, arms crossed over her trench coat. She come in like a shadow, no knock, no fanfare, just a faint scent of expensive perfume and classified files. I thought you might hit that wall, she said. That's why I brought this. She handed over a crisp manila envelope, sealed with red tape. Inside, copies of incident reports, all marked confidential, some barely legible carbon copies from scour divisions across Toronto. Mick flipped through them, eyes narrowing. You've got to be kidding me. Eve nodded. 87 reports in total, all logged between March of last year and 3 weeks ago. All the same MO, a man calling girls between 11 and 16, claiming to be a doctor sent by their school. Said he needed to perform a graduation exam or a posture assessment. Mack frowned. And no one connected them? Some did, Eve said, but they buried it. Said it was too inconclusive, not enough for a warrant. One girl's parents went to the police after she got as far as meeting the man outside a Yonge Street cafe. When a friend showed up unexpectedly, he bolted. Did anyone describe him, Mick asked. Eve opened another file. Male, between 25 and 35, tall, slight limp, acne scars, well-spoken, but with a faint stammer when caught off guard. The descriptions vary slightly. Different hats, different jackets. The core features match. Mack rubbed his chin. That's not just someone playing dress-up. That's someone who studies. Eve continued. He even targeted a modeling agency. To one of the junior receptionists, he was running a health screening for potential print clients. Then a majorette from the Argonauts got a call after a photo appeared in a community newspaper. Mick leaned back. So he's watching, reading, collecting. Exactly, Eve said. And here's the kicker. Half those girls live within walking distance of Belsize Drive. Mack looked up. You're saying he's based out of the same area Lily Moore was lured from? Eve nodded once. Same neighborhood, same hunting ground. He's never left. He just changed his bait. Mick opened a new page in his notebook and wrote one word at the top. Doctor. Under it, he began to list what they now knew. Fake credentials, access to student details, repeated use of phone calls, multiple aliases, never used the same voice twice. Guy's a chameleon, Mack said. Hard to catch if he's never in one place long. Eve offered a rare smile. Maybe we catch him by staying in one place. She pointed to a page in the file. One of the girls he called last week lives across from a bus stop in Belsize. I have a contact setting up a decoy notice, just like the babysitting board from years ago. We watch. He bites. Mick looked at her with newfound admiration. You're awfully prepared for someone, just passing along a whisper. I've been listening for a long time, she said. Now I think it's time someone else heard him too. Mick tapped his pencil against the desk, eyes on the map. This is the same man. He's gone from whispering to shouting. If we don't stop him soon, Eve said, he won't just shout, he'll scream. Mack folded the notebook Chandler had left them days earlier. It bore a number tied to Belsize. Now they had a pattern, a map, and a plan. And for the first time in a long time, the man who hunted girls from shadows had a name, or at least a place to start. Chapter 3. Linda's Case. The envelope was thicker than usual. Eve dropped it on Mick's desk like it weighed more than paper should. A faded red archive stamp ran across the front. The folder itself was brittle, the corners yellow with time, but the label was unmistakable. Langford, Linda, 1946. Homicide. Mick opened it slowly, thumbing past the initial reports. Photos, some sketches, handwritten statements, and fountain pen. The name hit him like a cold wind through an open door. Linda Langford, he read aloud, 14, strangled, Commissioner Street. Mack looked up from his coffee. Didn't we look at this one last year? Said it didn't fit? Because we were looking for scarf cases without sexual assault, Mick replied. This one was different, or so we thought. Eve leaned forward. You were building a pattern. Scarves, yes, but more importantly, control, ritual, placement. But what if this was the outlier that proves the point? She flipped to the coroner's report. Victim left dance class on Wellesley. Seen boarding the Jane Street bus just before 8:30. Witnesses say she exited around Jane and Annette. Last known sighting, 8:45 p.m. Speaking to a man in a Royal Mail truck. By 11:05, her body's found in Commissioner Street. Partially undressed, scarf knotted tight. Mack's brow furrowed. It's almost identical to Lily, except for the assault. Eve nodded. That's why he didn't make the link, but I think he should look again. She laid out a map, placing a red dot where Linda's body had been discovered, just west of Salter Street. Then she pointed to another mark just north of the Rouge River. Emily Travers, she said, dumped in 1944, barely 2 years earlier. It's 4 kilometers apart. Different method of transport, maybe. But same kind of place, isolated, overlooked, transitional. Mick rubbed his temples, staring at the photos. He escalated. Or, Eve said, he tried something, regretted the loss of control, and refined his approach. No more mess, no more risk of anything else. Just a scarf. Just enough. Mack whistled low. Same M.O., but we never thought to connect it. Eve nodded. He may have been experimenting, learning what worked for him, what didn't. Mick returned to the photos. Linda's scarf was silk. The knot, the same tight, low double looped. He flipped to the final autopsy note. Ligature marks identical in placement and depth to those in Travers and Moore cases. Knotted from behind. Victim likely strangled from the back seat of a vehicle. Max squinted at the photo. We have a signature. No, Mick said. We have a ritual. He opened his drawer and pulled out the larger caseboard, the one they only used for long-range patterns. He pinned Linda's fob beside the others. Travers, Moore, Wozniak. 3 girls we knew about, he murmured. One we missed. He watched silently as Mick drew a circle around the dates. 1. A beat, a rhythm. Every few years, Max said softly. Mick stared at the center point, the east end of the city, just beyond where the streetcars run. Then he picked up the phone. Give me Chandler, he said. I think it's time we close the circle. Chapter 4. Back to the beginning. The box was dusty, misfiled, nearly thrown out twice. Johnny Chandler found it wedged behind a cabinet in a forgotten basement office, the old city courthouse, where bureaucratic sins went to rot. He set it down on Mick's desk with a thump. It ain't Christmas, but I brought a gift. Mick brushed off the lid, revealing a stack of yellow documents wrapped in twine. The case number is barely legible. A clerk's scrawl on the side read, Closed, 1947. Indecent assaults. Chandler tapped the folder. Pulled from a court archive. Conviction for impersonating a physician. Multiple charges of indecent assault. 3 girls, maybe more. Mack raised an eyebrow. That the guy with the fake stethoscope? Chandler nodded. Claimed he was with the Department of Health. Said the girls needed routine checks to stay in school. When the real doctors got suspicious when a girl asked about a Dr. Hale. Mick flipped through the first few pages. Signed statements, court transcripts, a blurry mugshot. Leonard Hale, Mick read aloud. Born 1925. No prior record. Waiter at the old Royal Arms Hotel. Posed as a medical student. Said he was doing field work. Chandler pulled a matchbook from his coat pocket and dropped it beside the file. Recognize it? Mick turned it over. Queen Street Cafe. The one Chandler had flagged in the Emily Travers case. He was there, Mack asked. Chandler shrugged. Might have been. Or someone tracing his old habits. This guy had a pattern. He liked uniforms, authority, the illusion of trust. Mick scanned further down the report. Sentenced to 3 years. Transferred to minimum security after 6 months due to nonviolent behavior. Then released. No parole hearing on record, Chandler added. No follow-up filed, nothing. Mack blinked. He vanished? No, Chandler said, voice low. He didn't disappear. He changed uniforms. Mick looked up sharply. What do you mean? Last known address? A boarding house on Belsize Drive, Chandler said. You know what's 3 blocks from that? Mack answered before Mick could. The Eglinton subway. Julie Wozniak's last known location. Chandler nodded grimly. Hale was the prototype. The man with the smile, the coat, the soft voice. He didn't stop. He just got better. Mick stared at the photo. Hale's thin, pale face and slanted grin. No fingerprints, he muttered. No police photo match. He slipped right through. Not anymore, Chandler said. The file's open again. Mick closed the folder with care. So we're not chasing a new killer, he said. We're chasing an old one. Chandler lit a cigarette, his eyes fixed on the corkboard behind Mick. He's not just old, he said. He's practiced. Chapter 5. The Wire. Traps and Ghosts. The plan was Eve's. Elegant, surgical, and terrifying in its precision. Predators don't improvise, she told them. They rehearse. A young policewoman, Constable Sarah Elgin, barely 20, was selected for the role. Smart, composed, and the sort of quiet poise that made her blend in. She was given a borrowed school uniform, horn-rimmed glasses, and a tightly braided ponytail. She looked 16, maybe less. The call came from a borrowed line inside a Queen Street diner, a place Hale was known to frequent. A thin voice, pretending to be the receptionist of the Board of Education's Medical Liaison Office, told Hale a final candidate had been found. A bright girl, top of her class, might be exempt from exams, but could use a wellness check before summer break. He didn't ask for a name, just where and when. He'll want somewhere public, Eve told Mick. But quiet, familiar, somewhere he's done this before. He picked the cafe on Harvard Street. Corner booth, 3 p.m. Exactly the kind of place where the world looked away. Mick and Mack parked 2 blocks out and walked. Chandler was posted across the street reading the telegram and sipping black coffee like a ghost staking out the living. Eve sat in the back of the cafe in a nurse's uniform, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to remain invisible. At 3:02, Hale walked in. Slim, upright, crisp wool overcoat, thin leather gloves, face older now, lined but not unkind. His eyes scanned the cafe once, twice, and landed on Sarah. He smiled. It was practice. Polite, not warm. He took a seat across from her, placed his hat carefully beside him, and asked, "Julie, is it?" Sarah smiled nervously. "Yes, sir." He nodded, removed a folder from his coat, and slid it toward her. "It won't take long," he said. "Just a few questions. Routine." From across the street, Mick leaned forward. "Do we go in?" "Not yet," Mac said. "He's still showing us his playbook." 10 minutes passed. Hale never touched her, never even reached across the table. Just questions. The tip of his pen tapping the margin of the form with slow, steady rhythm. "Do you get enough sleep? Do you ever feel faint in gym class? Do you wear pajamas or sleep differently?" Sarah's hands trembled slightly. Eve shifted in her seat. Mick's jaw tightened. "That's enough." But Sarah held her ground. "I don't know why I have to do this," she said softly. "My teacher said I was exempt." Hale's smile froze, just for a moment. Then he gathered his things and stood. "I understand," he said gently. "We'll follow up another way." He tipped his hat, offered a hollow nod, and stepped out into the sunlight. They didn't stop him. They followed instead. He walked with purpose up Huron, down Bloor, 3 side streets toward the fringe of Rosedale. Finally turned up a narrow laneway off Belsize Drive and entered an old brick boarding house with a faded green door. 5 minutes later, Mick and Mac knocked. An elderly woman answered, apron covered in flour. "Leonard Hale," she repeated. "Yes, he's here, rents the attic. Quiet man, reads a lot." They climbed the stairs. No warrant, just instinct. The attic door wasn't locked. Inside, the light was dim, the curtains drawn. The air smelled faintly of shaving cream, dust, and cedar. What they saw stopped them cold. The far wall was covered in newspaper clippings, faded, folded, pinned with neat brass tacks. Obituaries, missing posters, headlines: "Girl vanishes after exam call. Tragedy in Unionville." Matchbooks lined a small shelf, cafe names handwritten inside each one. And scarves, dozens of them, folded, hung, tied in careful, deliberate knots. Mick exhaled. "This isn't a home." Mac nodded grimly. "It's a shrine." Footsteps creaked behind them. Eve stood in the doorway, eyes dark. "You've seen the inside of his mind," she said quietly. Then from below a sound. The front door. A cough. Footsteps rising. Mick drew his revolver. Mac stepped to the side. Leonard Hale reached the landing, saw them standing there. He froze. No fear, no confusion. Just that same polite, patient smile. "Well," he said, "this is awkward." Chapter 6. One Name Too Many. They catalogued the room like archaeologists excavating a tomb. Every inch told a story. Every drawer held a secret. The left side of the desk was filled with matchbooks, each dated in pencil and filed in rows. The right side, photographs carefully trimmed a background. Most were of girls, some smiling, some school portraits. One, unmistakably, was Julie Wozniak. It had a crease down the middle, as though he'd folded it in half and unfolded again, many times. In the narrow wardrobe behind a folded robe, he found a box. Inside, scarf fragments, all different, all knotted the same way, twice behind the neck, tight enough to bruise. One pair of children's shoes stood out, small black, still bearing the imprint of walking. Eve knelt beside the box and pulled one shoe free. The label on the inside read, Langford & Co., size 3. A note tucked into the toe, Jane Street, January 18. Linda Langford, the girl from 1946, the girl they had almost forgotten. The walls were lined with names, coded, scrawled, listed like a ledger, some with stars beside them, some underlined, some crossed out. Kept track, Mac said, voice flat. Of who he tried, Mick said, and who he took. They found a false drawer at the back of the desk. Inside, a gold locket with initials, J.W. A hospital appointment card for Dr. L. Hale. And a postcard, identical to the one from the Emily Travers case. On the back in the same script. She liked the quiet. They always do. They arrested him in silence. He didn't protest, didn't speak. In the interrogation room, Leonard Hale sat with his hands folded, legs crossed like he was waiting for a dinner reservation. Mac paced behind the one-way mirror. He's smug. He thinks he's smarter than us. He is smart, Eve said softly. Mick turned. You want to talk to him? She shook her head. I already did. They looked at her. He asked me if I like dogs. Silence. She took a breath, gathered her coat, and walked out. Inside the room, Hale smiled faintly as the door closed. Mac leaned on the edge of the desk and looked at Mick. We got him. Mick shook his head slowly. No, he said. We stopped him. But the silence goes deeper than this room. He turned back the evidence to the names, to the girls. Some had faces, some didn't. And one name still echoed, a name that wasn't on the wall. Yet. Epilogue. Open doors. The newspapers got their headline, City Monster Caught. Dr. Hale charged in 2 murders. Hale was tied conclusively to Julie and Linda. The photos, the shoes, the scarf knots, the matchbooks, the route logs, the boarding house accounts. There would be no trial. He confessed nothing. He answered no questions. He sat in his cell and waited. Calm, polite, silent. For Lily Moore, there was strong circumstantial overlap. Same style of approach, same manipulation, same zone of activity. No fingerprints, no weapon, no confession. Enough for suspicion, not enough for closure. As for Emily Travers, Mick stared again at the postcard, at the scarf, at the photo from Unionville yellowed with age. There was no proof, just that ache, that whisper, that silence. Late one night after Mac had gone and the squad room fell quiet, Mick returned to his desk. A neat folder sat waiting, slim, unlabeled except for one line written in Eve's elegant script. 1947. Anderson. He opened it. A black and white photograph. A police report, a girl's name. Mick read it once, twice, then leaned back in his chair and looked up into the dim ceiling light. The first girl, he said aloud. He didn't expect an answer, but something in the silence felt different, like it had just opened his eyes. The end. Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe to Ontario Cold Cases today so you never miss an episode. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comments.